Hello, everyone, and welcome, 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 welcome. Thank y'all so much for tuning in tonight. Tonight is our weekly Facebook Live, and tonight we're talking about atmospheric pressure, y'all. So I'm so glad that you all are here. Thank y'all so much for tuning in tonight. While you all are coming in, let me just give you a couple of announcements. The main one is last week I told you all about my Unlocking Mindfulness group that is starting up on Monday and going until Wednesday of next week. And I'm really happy to say that we're ready to start registering you all for that class. Some of you went ahead and started signing up last week, but we are ready for you all to get started and get registered for that group. It's going to be a group style atmosphere. It's going to be from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time each night for 3 nights, and we're going to come together to talk about unlocking mindfulness. I'm telling you, if you've ever been in one of my small groups, you know that those groups are very thorough, and so this will not disappoint. And so I'm really excited about you all taking the time to be a part of the group. And if you want any additional information, just inbox me. But if you are ready to go ahead and get signed up, follow this link below and you can go ahead and register for the course. So with that being said, I wanted to just go ahead and sort of give a preface for our conversation tonight. Last week we had I believe it was an awesome exchange. We talked about basically how you respond to the people in your life that are not mindful of you and what you are doing. We all know that when we conquer and when we deal with things in our life, we're going to be faced with people that love us, people that don't like us, and people that are just not going to understand what we are doing. So last week, I gave you all a couple of tips on how to deal with that. And I basically talked with you from a very transparent and practical stance and told you a lot about some things that I had gone through in my life. You know, your reality hits different when it's you going through what you're going through. We can tell people stuff all day, but it happens a little different when you are going through what you're going through. So before I go any further, would you please take this time to share this live with a friend? If you know someone, anyone that has ever gone through anything in their life, share it with them. If you've known someone, either you or someone in your circle, that has ever dealt with atmospheric pressure, either from the internal or the external, please take this time to share it with them. And finally, if you or yourself or you or someone you know has ever dealt with the spirit of perfectionism or the imposter syndrome, please invite them, because this live is going to be specifically for them. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm glad y'all are here. If you could take this time, if you are watching me live right now, take this time to let me know where you are from. Where are you joining me from? Hey, Prentice, how you doing? Hey, Kendra, how you doing? Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. It means so much to me that you all are here. And while we're waiting for just a couple of other people to come on in, just wanted to give y'all that announcement about the group that is going to be starting on Monday, going to Wednesday. So again, I'm looking forward to you all joining the group. If this is your first time being a part of my group, you're going to love it. If you've ever been in my groups before, you know that the information is thorough, but the interaction with each other is priceless, because you never know. You find people from different parts of the country and around the world that are pretty much going through things like you, and it's just amazing when you can trust people with your stuff. and learn from people and how we're dealing with the things that we're going through. So, y'all, I'm looking forward to it again. So, I am about to remove this screen so that I can talk to you all face to face. So, give me a few minutes to do that. But while I'm doing that, please go ahead and tell me now where you are coming from. I like to be able to have a regional perspective in mind when we're talking, so that I can be able to kind of see where you're coming from. So again, share this with those that are in your community and in your circle of influence. I'm hoping that if people may be busy right now or at work or in school, that they can catch this replay at a later time. So tonight, I prefaced the conversation on my post by saying that I'm going to tell you the truth, the whole truth. So help me God. And the reason why I said that is because I always try to be truthful with you all when I do my lives. But the more and more I get into these topics that are so I'm like, God, are you serious? You want me to talk about what? He always tells me straight up, like, I really want you to be transparent as possible, because I do believe that I don't want to come off to you as a coach or someone that does grief work and try to come off as this perfect person that never has anything going on, because it's only by the grace of God that I'm still standing too. So I think that can start off as a level playing field for us when you realize from me, out of my mouth, I'm telling you, hey, you're not the only one that has gone through anything. I myself have gone through things. And I think that we share something in common when we say that God is our stabilizer. He is our source. He is our everything, because he truly, truly is. So y'all take the time to invite your friends, and we're going to go ahead and get started. You'll see as I'm talking, the screen will disappear and I will come on the screen. So don't be alarmed by that. Everything is working fine. So in the middle of talking about atmospheric pressure, as I began to pretty much prepare for tonight, boom, bam, like I just really just got caught up in really what this topic means. And really what the topic means is really taking the time to understand that we need to get out of our own way. It's a lot of us that are trying to do things, trying to implement things, trying to go a certain way, but we realize we are allowing people, places, and things, and in many cases, even ourselves, to keep us in the way and frozen and not able to do what we know we need to do. So this is an opportunity for you to really address that atmospheric pressure that you're dealing with. And my goal is, at the end of tonight's conversation, you will find yourself in a state where you're going to be like, hey, everybody, where you're going to be like, you know what? All of the pressures that I've been dealing with, all of the pressures internally and externally in my atmosphere, I'm ready to acknowledge those things and to just say, you know what? I'm going to take things for how it is, and I'm going to just deal with it. Because how many of you all know, when we don't deal with stuff, it has a perfect way of dealing with us. So let me take this time to welcome Kendra. Welcome from Kinston, North Carolina. Welcome, Prentice. Welcome, Apostle Tamar. Welcome. Darcy, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate y'all for being here. I appreciate the likes and the hearts. That lets me know that you are communicating with me. I'm grateful that you all are here. So, how many of you all have ever dealt with the spirit of perfection? How many of you all ever dealt with that? Oh, it can't just be me. Come on. It can't just be me that has ever dealt with the spirit of perfectionism. Come on. Come on. If you've ever dealt with perfectionism, can you give me a shout out? Can you say yes? Me? Can you say something? I told y'all, we're not going to do these lives and I'm the one that's doing all the talking. Y'all can say something. You can let me know if you understand what I'm saying. Have you ever dealt with perfectionism? Hello? Hello out there? Thank you, Kendra. Come on. I know I ain't by myself. I know I'm not the only one that has dealt with perfectionism. How many of y'all other people have dealt with perfectionism? So, if you have dealt with perfectionism, you know how that feels. You know how it feels when you deal with perfectionism, when you come to the point of realizing that in a lot of cases, you could be in your own way. And not only that, but your perfectionism allows you to be frozen due to the expectation of other people's. And the expectation that they haven't even given you sometimes turns your stress into flat out pressure. And when you deal with pressure, it's not the same as stress, because when you deal with pressure, you are putting expectations and people's expectations on yourself. And when you're doing that, you're realizing that the very thing that God is calling you to do, or the very thing that you may be trying to do, may be led out of a stance of performance. And how many of you all know when you start trying to do something out of performance, you're going to keep perfecting it and perfecting it and perfecting it instead of starting it. And a lot of times, I believe in this season that we are in, it is time for us to say, you know what? There's a lot of perfectionism that is going on, but more importantly, it's a lot of people that are in need of what I have to say or that you have to say. So at some point, we've got to get off the pot of perfectionism and say, you know what? I've got to just start this. I've got to just do this. And when I do it, I can, tweak it as I go along. But, I got to start somewhere. So I'm going to basically just kind of give you a little bit about what we're going to be talking about in our class starting on Monday. The class is going to run Monday through Wednesday. It's going to be, hey, hometown, it's going to be talking about unlocking mindfulness, because the key to everything that we're doing is mindfulness. And so basically, as I was saying, perfectionism is at the root of what's creating this atmospheric pressure. Now, mind you, when we're not centered and we're not putting ourselves in a state where we're allowing ourselves to hear from God, we allow the pressures of our community, of our family, of our social environment, of even those people that don't even know us, to really cause that pressure. Notice I didn't say stress, because I do believe that in some cases there are things that make stress positive, and there are things that make stress a motivation to challenge us to do things. And we can, in some cases, conquer stress. But when things come out of pressure, pressure is something different. Pressure creates a trap. It creates performance. It creates just a never-ending circle of trying to get something right. How many of y'all know what I'm saying? And so what I realize is that, and this is where it gets good, in the middle of talking about atmospheric pressure, I really just really understood really what the Holy Spirit wanted me to talk to you tonight. And it was really about the stress of perfectionism and how a lot of us are sitting on ideas, $1,000 ideas, $100 ideas, $1,000,000 ideas, and we're not really wanting to get something started because we don't believe that we are worthy enough to have that type of information come out of our mouth, or we don't believe that we're worthy enough to execute the type of information that God is downloading on us. And we find ourselves going to this person and to that person. And thanks to the prophecy and the revelation that I received from a very, very good friend today, hometown, she basically confirmed when you go to the wrong people with the wrong information, those people are going to do one of two things. They're either going to take your information and go and get that $1,000 idea. Hey, you know how you doing, guys? Or they're going to basically say, you know what? I don't think what you're saying is really good. You may have $1,000,000 idea that you're going to just take a product that you're thinking about, patenting to the masses. And that person that you're trusting with all of your information, you may go to that person and say, you know what? I really want to talk to you about this idea. And they're going to tell you up and down, I don't think it's going to work. It's not going to work. But as soon as they get home, they're going to start widgeting and fidgeting with what you said and put their own thing together and run with it. And that's why in this season that we're in this 2019, in this month of April, and for how many ever months your transition lasts, it's going to be important that you discern who you get information from, who you hear from, because the downloads that God has given me, you telling me to preach, but you're the one to preach to me. You know what I'm saying? You're the one to confirm to me today and it was so amazing because it's so important. Those things that we're going to be getting our download in, we're going to have to make sure that we're talking to the right people. Because if not, Renetta, I'm using your words, it's going to be dangerous. Seriously, it really, really is. And I'm telling you, it's really good to have people that are in your corner that believe in your faith steps, that believe in your faith ideas, that believe in your faith walk, period. It's really good to be able to have people in your circle that can understand where you're coming from, because a lot of things that you're doing in this season are not going to make sense to the human eye. They're not going to make sense to those people that you were calling your colleagues at one time. They're not going to make sense because what it is going to make, it's going to make faith, but it's not going to make sense. And I'm telling you, a lot of times when we're trying to go off of our ideas, like, oh my God, I have a master's, or I have a doctorate, or I have a bachelor's, and my bachelor's and my master's basically tells me, you basically need to do this, 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 and this, instead of doing this, 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 and this. And a lot of times we're going to have to basically freeze that and basically go off of what the Holy Spirit is telling us to do. And sometimes it's extremely uncomfortable, which creates the atmospheric pressure, because those that are in your atmosphere that think you're supposed to be doing A, B, C, and D, because A, B, C, and D looks great, sounds great, they're going to just be like, I don't know if this is going to work. But those that make faith, those that can support you, regardless of what they see, those are going to be the ones that you're going to gravitate to, because those are going to be the ones that are lifting you up in the days of adversity when you face situations where you're just like, okay, I know that I heard from God and I'm not sure what to do, but I know that I'm going to do this. So tonight is really about us of those that call ourselves perfectionists. And I'm going to basically just stick a knife into your spirit and turn it and jack you up and tell you now is the time. There is not going to be another time like the present for you to do what God has called you to do. Everything that you thought you didn't understand, if you keep flowing in the direction of understanding that He told you to do it, He is going to download in you and tell you what you need to do. And I'm speaking from experience. So, what I wanted to say to you and what I wanted to ask you to do right now is write down the word average. If you have a piece of paper or a crayon and a pencil or whatever, I want you really, 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 really big to do me a favor, and I want you to write out the word average. Write out the word average for me. Average. And if you can, type the word average for me. Average. Did I spell that right? Oh, wow, I didn't spell it right. Hey, Nita, you better spell it right. Girl, your glasses. Oh, you need to put your glasses on, boo. Okay, so how many of y'all can see that I spelled it right? I put that A up in there. Average. Type average. Write average. Victory, welcome. Renetta, welcome. Reginald, welcome. Aunt Oline, welcome. Mrs. Prunella, welcome, cousin. Welcome. Hey, Lisa. So, y'all, the word average, you'll see, don't shoot me down. You'll see that I put that A up in there. So it does say average. Write down the word average in your notebook. And while you're on this live with me, write down average. 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 I want you to, first of all, share this with your friends. If you have a perfectionist in your family, or if you have a perfectionist in your circle, send this to them now so they can come on with you. So they can come on with you so y'all can get it one time and y'all can talk about it later and be able to start comparing notes to see how y'all going to pull each other out. Okay? So, you wrote down average, all right? Average. What does average mean to you? I told y'all, I'm not going to be the one doing all the talking. Okay? I know y'all hear my voice because of the pollen and all that. And you see my water. Okay? So I'm not going to do all the talking. What is average to you? What does average mean to you? When you hear the word average, what are you thinking in your mindset? Average. The word average. As you're sharing, tell me what average means to you. Average. Renetta says basic. Oh, y'all, I'm going to jack up everything you ever thought about that word tonight. Say, I'm going to jack up everything that you ever thought about the word average tonight, y'all. I am. So I hope you give me permission. Even if you don't give me permission, I'm still going to do it anyway because it was amazing. I'm telling you. All right, so let's go to the comments. Reginald said normal. Renetta said average, basic. Okay? Yanel says basic. All right? I'm going to say Prunella. I love that my cousin's name is Prunella. It's basic. Okay? Kendra says normal. Reginald says normal. Renetta says basic. Anybody else? All right, so while you're bringing in those comments, when we think of the word average, these are some of the words that we use to describe that. All right? This is some of the words that we use to describe the word average. Okay? And I'm telling you, when we are going through our life, how many of us strive to stay out of that category? How many of us strive? Find the hand emoji and just give me a hand or say yes or something. How many of us strive to stay out of the average zone? Is that you? Do you strive to stay out of the average zone? Okay, I see y'all are shy tonight. Y'all shy? Y'all gonna have to get out of being shy tonight. You're gonna have to get up out of it because in Jesus' name, you're being delivered from shy. Okay? Tell me, talk to me, tell me. Do many of us try to stay out of average? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we want to stay out of average. Why? Because society has always taught us that average is mediocre, average is below, average is absolutely under the gun, average is absolutely just it's just nasty. It's just, no, I don't want to be average. Who wants to be average? Because after all, average is blah. And nobody wants to be blah, right? I don't. I don't want to be blah. I don't even want my children to be blah. So this thing is, it's not just me, it's generational. I don't even want my children to be blah. I don't even want my plants to be average. I don't even want my furniture or my carpet to be average. I don't even want my car to be average. That's why I put that octane gas in it. You know what I'm saying? And that was my state. You know, as I began to go through life, you know, I was just like, oh, I don't want to be average. I want to do things perfectly. And if you have ever been orphaned, or if you've gone through the orphan spirit, you have an extra little touch there where you're extra, extra perfect. You don't want to ever fail in life. So you strive for perfectionism even when you really don't have to. And so you are far removed from average. And so y'all know, like a couple of last year I wrote my book Undoing. And Undoing is basically going to be a part of the Unlocking Mindfulness workshop that we're going to be having starting Monday. So make sure you get information about that to sign up, because this information tonight is going to be talked about more in detail in that group. But average. Most of us have gone out of our way to be average, okay? We don't want to be average. It's not something that we want to do. In fact, most of us are type A. We have that little voice in our head that's reminding us to always strive, to always make sure that we do whatever we need to do to stay on top, okay? And when we're doing that, we want to always strive to make sure that everything is taken care of. But you all, I'm telling you, there is something to be said with being average, especially when you allow that state to be the landing point of you when you have been perfect for a long time. Follow me, and I'm going to try to make this as sensible to you as possible. When we are dealing with atmospheric pressure, we're dealing with two things. We're dealing with stress and we're dealing with pressure. A lot of times we're dealing with these things in our internal and in our external. Stress is something that we, tend to deal with. It's tolerable sometimes, and in most cases, it can be positive. Turn to motivation, and we can, basically use stress to motivate us into doing something good. But when a lot of us deal with pressure, as I said before, pressure is performance-based. It's based on unfulfilled expectations that are oftentimes coming from ourselves, based on things that we've seen as an example, or things that we're dealing with in our external by people, places, and things that we don't owe anything to, but they influence our environment. So when we come into this atmosphere of being a perfectionist, we want to tend to do things the right way all the time. And I'm telling you, this is where the transparency comes in. All my life, when I lost my parents, I sought to be the biggest perfectionist that I could be. When I lost my parents, I always felt like I had something that I had to prove to myself, that I could make it without my parents, and I always wanted to please those in my atmosphere, because after all, they're looking at me like, oh, someone that was driven by obstacles and things in life that I've dealt with, and they're saying, my God, if she can do it, I can do it. But they don't realize my motives were not really based on the fact that I could do it. It was based on the fact that you don't have a choice. You got to do it. You're going to perfect yourself into doing it. So even if you can't do it, you're going to tell yourself you can, and you're going to strive, and you're going to make it. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some that drive themselves, and that's nothing wrong with that. But I'm talking about the perfectionist, the one that is consistently and constantly falling out at the end of the night, trying to do everything right, or not doing things because they never want to start, in fear that they'll always get it wrong. And so when I began to, while I was pregnant with Ogo, start this process of undoing, it began to really unfold some layers in me, sort of like an onion being peeled back. I began to see that there were parts of me that were great, parts of me that were not so great, parts of me that were influenced by certain things, and parts of me that I had allowed myself to be influenced by. And I realized that I had some perfectionism tendencies and some things that I really didn't want to do in my life, and some things that I did want to do. And so I began to kind of survey my environment, why I was doing what I was doing, and what was leading me and driving me to do what I was doing. And I realized that I was operating out of this spirit of perfectionism. And so through the spirit of perfectionism, I began to really begin studying about average. And it was really amazing to me, as I'm coming to the point now, when you are a perfectionist, if you take a couple of days or even a couple of hours to understand what someone in a state of average does, it can begin to change your mindset for how you begin to do the things in life that you do. And what I'm saying from that is this. When we tend to ignore the voices that tell us we are perfectionists, we will not do anything. We'll be frozen, we'll never start projects, we'll never get anything done, or we will burn ourselves out trying to do everything. So in essence, when we tend to ignore the voices that are trying to get our attention to tell us, hey, you're operating out of perfectionism, when we tend to ignore those voices will only get louder and louder and louder and louder. And we eventually find ourselves in a state of going down the path of perfectionism, doing more and more and more and more and more, and sometimes doing it for less, until we are absolutely burned to the bones. And then we take that habit and we transfer it down to our family. We transfer it down to our husband. We transfer it down to our siblings. We transfer it down to our aunties. We transfer it down to our children and everyone in our environment, our friends. And we begin to just transfer this perfectionism, like, get yourself together, why don't you? And so for a couple of days, that led to a couple of weeks, I began to sort of do a self-study on average, just the whole average thing. And what I began to realize is people choose what path they're going to do. People choose whatever motivation they choose. Some people are straight up lazy and they don't want to do anything in life. Some people are average either by calling themselves that or by performing that way. But when you have dealt with something that has been perfectionism based and you realize, I don't want to be a perfectionist anymore, you've got to have a landing place that you can come to so that you can get everything surveyed out. And then that place will begin to show you what you need to focus on. And I will call that the land of average. Now, it's not a place that you want to stay. Don't get me wrong. But if you think about the way and the view and the lens that we see average, it's a place that we often don't want to come to. It's a place that we often don't want to ever not only land, but live in. We don't want to be average because when we're told that we're average or when we're told how average people are, we're just like, oh God, I don't want to be that way. I don't want to be that way. But when you have been operating in perfectionism all of your life, sometimes you need to bring yourself out of being perfect or following that sense of perfectionism and get yourself into a space where you can just say, for a moment, I need to just refocus. And I'm telling you all, when I did that for a couple of days, what I began to realize is that being in that space, if only for a couple of hours or days, taught me something powerful. The first thing it taught me was that we are deeply rooted in our stuff. Okay? When we take on something in our lives that means something to us, we tend to get heavily invested in those things. And when we get heavily invested in those things, sometimes we don't allow the voice of God to come in and instruct us. Sometimes we just get a download from Him that tells us to go in a direction and we just take it over from there. Meaning we just say, okay, I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to go on my path. And we never allow ourselves to be mindful to what God is telling us. So we may be getting down to path A, B, C, and D, and He may tell us, oh, veer to the left or veer to the right. But you're so full of yourself and you're so in this perfectionist mode that you're just like, I don't want to hear nobody's voice because I know what I need to do. And you just keep going down that path. And you end up in burnout or you end up in concrete where you're just frozen and not moving. And how many of you all know when you find yourselves in either one of the two extremes, either burnt out or frozen, you're not doing anything. Why? Because in one extreme, you're just operating on fumes. And in the other, I can't move because I'm stuck. And how many of you all know that when we find ourselves deeply rooted in our stuff, we've got to come out of that. So getting out of that starts with us getting into a place where we can just hear what God is saying to us. It's just an even playing field. And I call that land of average, because if you're only there for a couple of hours, or if you're only there for a couple of days or weeks, you're putting yourself in the space to be able to hear something from someone that you were not listening to before, and you're able to receive downloads, and you're not the one that's the subject matter expert, meaning you're going to surrender yourself and surrender your mindset just for a moment so you can hear something from someone that's smarter than you. Does that make sense to you all? So I really think that is what being in perfectionism taught me, that if only for a moment I need to practice this mindfulness by allowing myself to be able to hear a new download, hear some information that I know I'm not qualified for, that I know that I'm going to have to receive additional instructions in order to act out on. And so that's one of the first things that being mindful taught me, and that understanding how I needed to flow in this atmospheric pressure. One of the things that you have to do when you're dealing with atmospheric pressure is get out of being the subject matter expert. There is a thunderstorm that's planned tonight. And if I wanted to operate as a subject matter expert, I would basically go out into the rain with no umbrella. I would just be out there. I'm getting the text about the tornado warning. I'm getting the text about the severe weather storms. But I'm saying, you know what? I am the expert on rain. So I'm going to go out here, and I know I don't need my umbrella. I don't need my text. I'm just going to flow out here in the rain. And how many of you all know if you just keep flowing in the rain, eventually you're going to get struck by lightning, or you're going to be hit by debris, or you're going to just be blown away by the wind, when all you had to do was subject yourself to the meteorologist or the Holy Spirit or that voice that's behind you, which is the Holy Spirit that's trying to tell you, girl, get your umbrella, or sir, get your raincoat, or sir or ma'am, just stay home. But when we think that we know it all, we begin to flow in this standpoint of, I don't know. Now I see, and this is no matter to me at all. Because one thing you got to understand, when you are teaching online, or when you're teaching in person, and you are just like the preacher in the pulpit, or you're the speaker in the front of the room, and you start seeing people tapping out and tipping out and tiptoeing out because they don't want to hear the information, you cannot let that offend you. Because I'm telling you, when God began to tell me that I was trying to operate out of perfectionism, I didn't want to hear that either. And when he began to tell me, go to the land of average for a couple of hours so that I can begin to speak to you about what you don't know and what you need to know in this new season that you're in, I didn't want to hear that, because I just swore I knew everything. And I just swore, you know what? I don't need a new download. I got this. But how many of you all know? That's one of the reasons why many of us are dealing with the atmospheric pressure that we're dealing with. It's because we're trying to handle things that are too heavy for us. We're coming and we're putting ourselves in environments where people are toxic and they don't mean us any well, or they mean us well and they just don't know what to say to us. And the pull of them telling us what to do, even when we know we got a download from the Holy Spirit telling us what to do, that download and that pull cannot reside in the same space. Because if God is telling you to go from this place to this place, but the person that loves you or the person that hates you is telling you, no, stay here, what are you going to do? Whose voice are you going to listen to? And it's imperative in this season that we're in that you know whose voice to listen to. You don't want to abandon people or be mean to people, but in this space that you're in, some of the atmospheres that we're going in, those doors were closed last year but we were still trying to open the door and let me in. I want to come in. And God is saying, no, sweetie, I closed that door. And no, sir, I closed that door a year ago, but you're still trying to go through the door. And we need to just get the understanding. Now, in this space that we are in, if we try to go through those doors that God is closing, there's going to be some trouble. And trouble, by that I mean exactly what I say. Atmospheric pressure. Not the kind that's flesh, but the kind that's spiritual. And if you don't have any inkling of wanting to know God or reading your Bible or trying to understand how God fits into your busy schedule, you're going to absolutely miss what he's trying to say. There is a protection that rests in listening to God and listening to what he has you to do. It does not take your cool points to say, I got a father and he knows more than me. And I need to listen to this father because he can tell me what I need to know. But no, we want to keep our cool points and we want to just be like, nah, God, I got this. And when somebody tells you, hey, Brother Jimmy, how you doing? Do you know which way you're going today? Or do you know what you're going to be doing tomorrow? And you're just like, nah, man, I got this. I got this. But no, Brother Jimmy, knowing him, he's not going to be like that. He's going to be like, let me talk to the point man, which is Jesus, and let me get my download from him. And that's what we got to do in this season. We've got to know that a lot of times when we're seeking perfectionism, we're sitting on nothing. We're sitting on the basics. We're sitting on what we think we know. And guess what? When we're dealing with perfectionism, that's all we're ever going to know because we've shut ourselves down from trying to get anything new. And how many of you all know you can't put what? I think y'all know what I'm about to say. You can't put new wine in old wineskins. You can't put the new into the old. And a lot of times we're getting these downloads from the Holy Spirit, but he's just like, wait, I'm trying to tell you something. But you fighting me, the one that's trying to tell you what to do about your business, about your children, about your marriage. You fighting me. And I'm trying to tell you, I am God. I made you. But you like, no, God, I got this. You know why? It's your ego and it's your spirit of perfectionism. And you're dealing with the atmospheric pressure internally because within yourself, there is a battle. Because yourself needs to move aside and let the Holy Spirit come in. You're right, Renetta. The new and the old don't work together. But you're also dealing with the atmospheric pressure from the outside because you're listening to everybody's voice except the voice that matters. And y'all, I'm telling you, when he began to tell me that you got to step out of this perfectionist mindset so you can hear what I need you to hear, that changed everything for me because I began to understand there is a way that things are going to have to work in my life differently. First of all, there are going to be people that I used to tell everything to that I'm not going to be able to tell Nathan to. There are going to be some places that I used to frequent. I'm not going to be able to frequent those places. And it can even seem like when you're being downloaded from God with new information that you're just like, my God, like I feel so lonely. Like there's like nothing going on. Like I don't really got no invitations coming in. Don't really know what to do. But you're just like, oh, what is it you're saying to me? I need to be still so that I can hear what you're saying to me. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this group work class called Unlocking Mindfulness, because it's going to show you, now that we know all of that, now that we have the understanding that we are operating out of perfectionism, now that we are dealing with the internal and the external pressure from the atmosphere, I'm going to teach you how to clean up your atmosphere, starting with your first and going out to your greater. I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you about those things that may have been in your atmosphere that may be compacted grief that you didn't want to let go. Because guess what? An amazing things happens when you realize that there is a connection with who you are versus who you should be, who you think you should be. Those things and those people are always in conflict. So even when God is trying to love on you, you're like, God, this is what I should be doing. And God is like, no, but this is who you are right now. And you're just like, no, God, there's a conflict because this is what I should be doing. I've been doing this all my life. I've been doing this for the last 10 years. And he's just like, no, this is what I told you to do now. And so there presents a conflict as the word talks about, and practically as people talk about. There's a conflict that we face. And I'm going to walk you through that in this mindfulness class. And I really believe that when we're able to identify who we are and what we are, our identity is no longer challenged. Then we begin to understand the difference between, oh, I need to just pray on this, or I need to just excommunicate this from my environment. Because a lot of times we're tolerating stuff that we no longer need to tolerate. And a lot of that is based on we're not knowing who we are. And we don't know our rights. And we don't know the authority that we've given. We are an orphan. And we're operating as an orphan. So a major part of the night that we spend in this 3-night class is going to talk about specifically the orphan spirit. Because identity, if your identity is challenged, either internally or externally, that's going to itself block you. It's going to hold you up. It's going to keep you from getting a download, and you're going to have all of this new wine that God has for you over here. But you got this vessel of an old wineskin. And once you get all of that old mindset cleared out, you're going to be able to say, oh my God, so God, you've been waiting all this time to pour all of this download into my new wineskin? It's so amazing when the light comes on and you begin to see people that were once bogged down in pressure and in grief. When you begin to see them awakened and enlightened and motivated and mindful, it's something happens, even to myself. I love it. And I'm telling you, the more I teach, the more I am healed even. Because I'm telling you, it's one thing between empathy and sympathy. And that advice hit differently when you have gone through something in your life and you're not afraid to tell people what you have gone through. So in our group, it's a private group where we're challenging each other. We're talking about our life experiences. And I go deeper than I have gone before in my lives to tell you really about what I have gone through in my life and really how I have had to work through the atmospheric pressure. It's something when you have come into the knowledge of knowing God all your life, only to find out you really didn't know him at all. And when you come into the point of breaking all those walls down and saying, I really want to know who you are to me. When that happens, oh my God, things begin to change in your atmosphere. And you begin to really start hallowing things differently and respecting things different. Because when you don't respect things and when things become too familiar, abuse is inevitable. And I think I said that last night on my Facebook page. When familiarity sets in, it becomes mechanical. And when mechanisms cut in and when they remain, you cannot get a download because that wheel is turning. The wheel is turning. The wheel of perfectionism is turning. And God is just like, break your wheel, break your cycle, because I want to stick something in there for you to think about. But you're like, no, God, this wheel is turning. I don't want to do that. I want to do that. He's like, no, stop. Put a pin in it. Let me show you what I need to show you. Then you begin to understand, oh my God, wait, I've been creating this wheel all my life. I need to stop and get the download from the one that created me. So this class, this group work is going to be a way to usher you into that process. If you've ever taken my group courses before, you know it is extremely thorough. If you're not able to attend all 3 nights, it's no problem. You come when you can and you watch the replay, and I will be accessible to you on the times that you cannot come. That's no problem. But I want you to take the time to register for the group work. You'll see a whole download and read up about the course, the group work. It'll show you pretty much what it is and what we're going to be doing. But I'm telling you, for 3 nights, we're going to be talking about in detail what it is, as we just talked about, understanding it, how to get rid of it, and then practicing mindfulness. Because even when you do get one download of understanding, now that you know that you're in perfectionism, how do I get out? And not only that, Danita, how do I stay out? And so I begin to give you those mindfulness practices that you can utilize from day one until Jesus comes. And you just keep doing those things to keep yourself in remembrance of who you are. And so I'm excited about the group work. Many of you went ahead and signed up last week. A couple of you signed up during this week so far. And I'm giving the rest of you the opportunity to sign up tonight for this 3-day course. It's going to be offered at a time during the evening that can accommodate various time zones, because I do coach and work in various time zones. So I'm happy to be able to offer it to you tonight. It is a private community, as I said before, on Monday, April 22nd through Wednesday, April 24th from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So in 3 days, we will start it. It basically talks about everything that I have told you about last week and this week. You have a workbook. You have access to live coaching. You have accountability from each other. You have peer coaching, coaching from me. It's really an opportunity for you to be able to begin to develop a quiet space for you to be able to practice the mindfulness that you need. And most importantly, you get a personalized plan of action following the group to be able to help you and catapult you into the next level. I want to basically take the time to read this. It's a word from me. And basically, I get this question a lot about why I do what I do. Why did I start Grief Talk? Why did I start helping people to publish their works? Why do I coach and speak and teach all over the world with my husband with the Activation Tour? And this is the reason, and I'll read it. Communication, notification, and coordination. These 3 words were once the present that God gifted me when I was beginning my professional career as a social worker who loved to write policy, read the Bible, and cuss. You got it right. I didn't stutter. Don't judge me, because at the time I was a hot mess. Conflicted, I prayed really hard one night, and these were the short 3 words that God gave me. And He told me that in everything I do, commit to talking to me consistently, notifying me of how I feel constantly, and to always look for ways to coordinate what He tells me to do and for someone else. And since that time, I have created content for the masses to assist them in healing from grief, pressure, transition, and life's trauma. So y'all, this group is going to encourage you to do the same, so that you can then go and lift someone out of the pit that they are in. So I really believe that this group work is going to be very beneficial for you. So I want to encourage you to sign up. We're going to talk about how we see success, how we are measuring it, how to rethink the way we see average as we tiptoed on tonight. We'll go into that in more detail, but I really want you to sign up for this class because I really believe more than anything, there may be a community that people are in that you are able to influence, that I may not be able to influence. Coming to this group or a group like this creates sort of a mastermind for you to get together with myself and other people for us to talk about what we are dealing with in our life, and for us to be able to be strengthened so that when we go to our circles of influence, we can talk to them about the various things that we're dealing with. And then we can begin to then become a sort of a mentee or a mentor for those people to help them navigate through the things in life that they're going through. I truly believe in this season that God is raising up people that are going to speak and say those things that the people that have been saying it for years simply just don't want to say. No one wants to be called perfect. No one wants to go to a congregation or to a community or to a room full of people and tell them that they are operating in perfectionism. But if you are bold enough to say what needs to be said, I truly believe that God is going to bless you in a great way to be able to do something extraordinary in this season that we are in. So y'all, I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section and I will answer them. But if you don't have any questions and you're ready to go ahead and get signed up for the group work, please go ahead and do so. I cannot wait to get started with you. I thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. I wanted to basically keep our time down to an hour because I know that I can pretty much get long-winded like a preacher. But I wanted to just thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. And I just want to thank you all so much for taking the time to be with me. And I hope that if only for a few minutes you begin to understand and begin the process of assessing yourself to see if you fit that perfectionism bill, or if perhaps someone in your circle may fit that bill of perfectionism. And if they do, how you and them can begin the process of intertwining out of it. It starts with mindfulness. So I'm asking you to give yourself the gift of stealing away for a couple of days to be able to get an understanding, a deeper understanding of how to create a mindful space in the midst of chaos. I'll talk to you all soon. God bless you and take care.